Hey, my lovelies. I hope you're all safe and well. It's Mitch here. I'm just coming on to do another little question and answers video. Try to, if I can. Sorry if you can hear next door's dogs. They're going mental. Every time I do these videos, like they kick off next door. I don't know what's going on, and I do it all different times when I record them as well. Something not right there. Anyway, so I've been asked a question. What happens to celebrities when they pass over and can they come forward? And I think that's a really interesting question. And a few people have asked, have I ever sort of read for celebrities, both sort of, passed over or alive? So lots of pieces to that question. Oh, sorry if you can hear that dog. um, yeah, so I think it's a really, really cool question, actually. So, first of all, I want to say, there's a great quote by Andy Warhol, isn't there? That we'll all have our 15 minutes of fame. Some people get a little bit longer if they're lucky, or maybe it's unlucky. That's the thing. Fame is a double-edged sword. Being famous, being a celebrity is a double-edged sword, actually. And I think when you strip it all back to basics, they're just people. They love hard, they love deep, they eat, they sleep, they shit, just like the rest of us, you know? And honestly, I think it's my belief that, celebrities, as it were, they're just regular people, that maybe have gone a little bit further, maybe they've achieved slightly more, or it maybe seems like that to the public eye, you know. Um, but yeah, they're just normal people like you and I when you strip it all back to basics. And I have read for some amazing celebrities that are both alive on sort of film, stage, a lot of Netflix series. I read for a lot of people that are connected to Netflix actors and actresses directly. Can't name names for obviously privacy reasons, but I will say a lot of people that are connected to Game of Thrones, I've read for. Quite a few people that are connected to the Ripper series. I've read for quite a few people that are connected to Bridgerton. I've also read for quite a few people that are makeup artists as well. I've also read for people that are big in sort of film land. James Bond is one of the films, Mission Impossible, to name a few. I've also read for people that are connected to stage and screen. There's a beautiful lady that sees me regularly for readings, and she's currently on tour in the Rocky Horror Show. And actually, we've become quite uh, almost little friends in her own way. She's a client, and I'm very respectful of that. But we've got a little bit of a bond. She'll often like my little posts on Instagram and different things, and I'll keep an eye on what she's doing. So yeah, there's lots of beautiful connections in lots of beautiful places. So and I think what's so important to remember is because essentially these people are just people, is it so weird? Is it so out there to think that they're any different from us? And as a reader, what's really important to me, when someone sits down in front of me, I don't care whether I'm reading for a local mum that works down Tesco's down the road in between sort of doing her childcare. Or somebody that's sort of known about on sort of stage and screen. I treat everybody equally. I treat everybody the same with people coming in from the world of spirit. I give them the same respect, the same love that I give all the people coming in from spirit, whether I've got the drunk sort of dad that abused somebody coming forward to apologize, or whether I've got the person that was a very successful, known singer worldwide. I treat everybody with love, with respect, with dignity, because that's what it's really all about. So this whole business of celebrity and status, I don't really go for that too much because I'm a firm believer we're all celebrities, we're all famous in our own mind, in our own rights, really, for good and bad reasons. It's not always positive. Um, but absolutely, I have linked with celebrities that have passed over, not knowing necessarily that's who it was at the time or becoming aware afterwards, and then it actually being more magical. One of the most really sort of out there experiences that I had, which some people don't believe me, and that's fine. I'm not here to sort of convert. I really don't have a reason to lie about stuff. I have the recordings of these sessions because obviously I have to keep, any Zoom sessions for, privacy purposes and everything. So I have the physical recording of this. So I know it took place, I know it happened. And if I wanted to, I'm not going to share it because obviously that would be a breach of privacy, but I could share it if I needed to. So I have no reason to lie about this experience. But I read for somebody quite a few years ago now. This was when I was living in North Cadbury, and she's a very famous photographer. And I didn't realize that she was a famous photographer. So she was actually a celebrity in her own rights. But I'm a bit rubbish with people. So unless it's going to be Cher sitting down in front of me, which hasn't ever happened and is very unlikely to, although you never know, I'm still keeping an open mind, putting it out there. But unless somebody like her was to sit down in front of me, I don't always know that I'm reading for a celebrity or I'm reading for somebody of status, if you like, because I just treat everybody as equal, stay in my lane. But this lovely photographer, and she was a beautiful, beautiful lady. I did her a reading. She'd sort of said about she'd moved down to the Somerset area. She was getting established, but she was really struggling with deep grief, deep loss. Anyway, so we conducted the reading, we did the sort of session, and very quickly it was becoming apparent to me that I was linking with George Michael, and he came through, and he was absolutely amazing. He was beautiful in his own rights, and it turned out that she actually lived with George Michael for quite some years, and she did a lot of his photography for many of his albums, particularly one of the most famous ones being um, the Fast Love album. And so that's my kind of one of my big claims to fame spiritually. I've also read for, I remember I did a show, so it was like a theatre, one of the theatre shows I did, and there was a lady sitting in the audience, and Patrick Swayze came through. And it ended up being that he was connected to this elderly lady through dance, which was just amazing. And I brought kind of characteristics. I said, I've got this lovely guy coming through. He's announcing himself as Patrick. He didn't tell me it was Patrick Swayze, and I didn't know it was Patrick Swayze. But at the end of the night, she came up to me and she said, "You do realize who that was?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "That was Patrick Swayze." I just thought it was a fabulous, person that was just heavily into dance and everything and whatever. So I don't, as a medium, always necessarily know the intricate parts if I don't necessarily see everything. But yeah, but when you get that confirmation and that validation, a recent sort of very powerful experience. So we did a private seance in the Carpe Noctem shop in Frome, and it wasn't open to the public. It was just a select few of us, and we did a Ouija board session. And when they're done properly, they can be very powerful. And we had come through on the board um, the beautiful late James the Vivian. And a lot of people don't know, but I actually was a friend of James, but I was friends with him before he became famous, before he became really established and really known about as the Vivian. Because back in the old days, I was doing my Cher drag queen stuff on the circuit, he was doing his stuff, and we sometimes merged and crossed over. And so we used to talk about all things Cher on Facebook. We used to sort of talk about makeup tips, different things, costumes. Didn't necessarily know him like overly, really, really well, as in like I would meet up for a coffee or a lunch with him, but we used to always keep in touch and just keep an eye on what each other were doing. And even like right in the end when he was doing his theatre stuff, both in Wizard of Oz playing the witch, and then Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I often would like his stuff on Instagram, he'd like my stuff, and there was just that exchange of energy. So yeah, and he's come through very, very fluently on a Ouija board session, which wasn't just having myself there, it had a collective group of people that all saw the connection firsthand. So I think really what we have to think is they are people that work in the public setting, in the public eye. But to some people, my lovely friend Bex, who works at Carpe Noctem, some people travel wide and far to go and see her shop. So for some people, she is a celebrity in her own rights. You know, some people that come to my shows and see me have come from near and far. Some people say, "Oh, it's it's so great to sort of see you and to sort of meet you and everything else." And for some people, they see me as a celebrity. I don't particularly think I am, but when we talk about celebrity, that can mean so many things for so many different people, and the ones that go on to do the stage work, the TV work, and everything else. Yes, maybe they've got to experience a bit more stuff and do a bit more stuff, but they're just people at the end of the day, beautiful people. So, in answer to the question, yes, I have connected with famous people, celebrities on both sides of life. And I think that will be something I can continue to do. And what's lovely is when I not always necessarily know who the person is straight away, but then it becomes apparent afterwards, there's actually more evidence for the client. There's more validation in that when they, because if I'd have known straight away it was George Michael, I might have gone all funny and buzzy, and I didn't. I stayed respectful. I stayed aware, and I did realize, quite quickly on that it was him and everything. And, what's lovely is that those people that come to me for readings entrust me. They entrust my privacy and everything else, and my respect to them as well as to their loved ones in spirit. And those that are connecting in from spirit, that the fact that they entrust me so much to come through as well. So it's a really, really beautiful thing. What I will say, and there is a sort of thing that goes about quite a lot within the sort of spiritual community, some people sort of claim that they've met or they've connected with people randomly. So, for instance, when Michael Jackson first passed over, a lot of people were claiming that they were linking with Michael Jackson directly. I have never had a spirit come forward of celebrity status unless I have a link to somebody. So I've only ever had somebody kind of come forward that's been connected to somebody in the audience at one of my shows, or they've come for a Zoom session and there's a loved one that's connected that way, and there's a contract between exchange of energy. And I'm not saying that Michael Jackson hasn't not go to these people, because maybe he has. I don't know. Obviously, I can't say what other people's connections and experiences are, and it would be quite ignorant of me to take away someone else's experience. But for me personally, famous spirits have never ever come forward unless there's been a contracted reason to. And I think that's important to say, because you do get a lot of these mediums that try and sort of ride the telcos, try and sort of cling on to people's fame and names. There might be some people watching this video thinking, oh, look at him name dropping. And it's actually not name dropping, because it's just the experiences that I've had, and everything else. And I've been very mindful as to not say the people that I read for, which actually those names are quite impressive. But I've got to be very mindful of confidentiality, which I am. Um, so yeah, but I think really what it comes down to is the people just like us, you know, and a lot of people that I read for that are famous or of status or celebrity, they're not necessarily the happiest. Some of them are beautiful people, but some of them are very stuck between responsibility and the life that they really want to be having, and there isn't always necessarily harmony. I find sometimes when I sort of do a reading for Brenda that works down the road at Tesco's, her life is a lot more grounded, a lot more humble, a lot more simple, but she's a lot more happier than the person that's on stage and screen in some situations, not always, but I have noticed that there is a pattern, a theme, where the more successful people become, it seems to be in some areas the more unhappy or the more unfulfilled maybe they feel, So they've done lots of things, they've had lots of experiences, they've had lots of connection, but they're still looking for something. They haven't found quite what they're looking for, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, but we're all essentially spirit in a body walking each other back home, aren't we? So, yeah, I hope this video helps. I hope it makes a little bit of sense for you. And yeah, more questions and answers coming as and when. But keep shining bright, stay fabulous. If you've got a question or something you want to know about, pop it to me either on this video, on a comment, or on a DM. And if I feel I've got enough awareness and knowledge to answer it, I will tackle it. I will try and give it a go. So you take care, look after yourselves. Bye for now.